A lion explodes onto the sand out of nowhere. No door, no gate. One moment the arena is empty, the next a full-grown beast is standing in the sunlight, blinking, while 50,000 people scream. Minutes later, that same floor splits open, and armed men rise up through it as if the earth itself is handing them to the crowd. To the Romans watching, it was magic. To us, it is one of the great engineering secrets of the ancient world. Because the Colosseum was never just a building. It was the beating heart of Rome, the largest amphitheater ever raised. Taller than a modern apartment block, vast enough to swallow a stadium, thrown up in only 8 years by an empire showing off to the entire world. When you walked toward it, it did not look like architecture. It looked like a mountain that had decided to become a wall. It was Rome turned to stone, her power, her ambition, her hunger. For 2,000 years, it has stood at the center of the city, and somewhere along the way, it stopped being a building and became something more, the very symbol of Rome. Say the word Rome, and this is the shape that rises in your mind. There is even an old saying, while the Colosseum stands, Rome shall stand. But everyone knows the Colosseum from the outside. Almost no one knows what actually made it work. Because the real genius was never the arches you photograph. It was hidden underneath the sand, a machine the crowd was never meant to see. Let me take you down into it. To understand the machine beneath the arena, you first have to understand why Rome needed a machine at all. And that story doesn't begin with stone, it begins with fire. In the year 64, a fire tore through Rome. It burned for 6 days and 7 nights and left much of the city in ash. And almost immediately, a rumor spread that would never quite die, that the emperor himself, Nero, had said it, that he had burned his own capital to clear the ground for something he wanted to build. Whether or not that was true, what he built next made people believe it. On the still smoking ruins, in the very heart of the city, Nero raised a palace for himself. The Domus Aurea, the Golden House, private woods, golden statues, ceilings that showered guests with flowers, and at its center, an artificial lake, a private lake in the middle of Rome, where ordinary neighborhoods had stood before the flames. Beside it, he put up a bronze statue of himself, over 100 feet tall, glaring out over a city that was starving while he decorated. To the people of Rome, it was not a palace, it was an insult, poured in gold. Then Nero fell. In the year 68, abandoned and condemned, he took his own life, and Rome collapsed into a year of civil war. 4 emperors in 12 months, each one murdered or overthrown. Out of that chaos climbed a hard practical soldier named Vespasian. He was not born to power. He had no royal blood, no glamour, no legend. What he had was a problem. He needed the people of Rome to accept him. He needed legitimacy, and he found it in that lake. Because Vespasian looked at Nero's private lake, the ultimate symbol of one man's greed, and made one of the most brilliant political decisions in the history of Rome. He drained it, and on the spot where a tyrant had kept a lake for himself, he ordered the largest public entertainment building the world had ever seen, a gift to everyone. The message could not have been louder if he had carved it across the sky. Where one man hoarded pleasure, now the whole city will share it. Where Nero took, the Flavians give. That is what the Colosseum was before it was ever a stadium. It was propaganda made of stone, an apology for the past and a promise for the future. Its real name, by the way, was never the Colosseum. It was the Flavian Amphitheater, named for Vespasian's family. The name we use came later, borrowed from that giant bronze statue standing next to it, the Colossus. The tyrant's monument ended up lending its name to the people's monument. Rome had a sense of irony. Now, the building itself should not have been possible in the time they built it. Construction began around the year 72. It was essentially finished by the year 80. 8 years to raise a mountain of stone that still stands 2,000 years later. Picture it. You drain a lake in the center of a capital city, and within a decade you stand a 15-story structure on the mud, by hand, with no engine anywhere on the site. The soil was the first enemy, wet, unstable ground where a lake had just been. So the Romans dug down and poured a ring of concrete up to 12 meters thick. a vast stone donut buried in the earth to carry the entire weight. Then they went up. Enormous blocks of travertine, quarried at Tivoli and dragged into the city on ox carts, lifted into place by human-powered wooden cranes and locked together with iron clamps. No mortar between them, just metal and precision. Inside, lighter tuff and brick and concrete kept the weight down. And the real secret of its strength was a shape, the arch. Arch upon arch upon arch, vault upon vault. A modular skeleton that passed the load from one ring to the next. So the building held itself up the way a bridge does, and could be raised fast in repeating pieces, like assembling the same brilliant idea 80 times around a circle. When it opened, it could hold a crowd the size of a small town, 50,000 people by careful counts, and the Romans themselves boasted of far more. It was the largest amphitheater ever built, and it never lost that title. Not in 2,000 years. Nearly 200 meters long, 50 meters tall. But a gift is only as good as what happens inside it. Vespasian had not built a building. He had built a stage. And on that stage, Rome was about to put on a show so extreme, so relentless, that the whole empire would need a hidden machine just to keep up with it. Let me show you a day at the games. The games began at dawn and ran until the sun went down, and they followed an order as fixed as a religious rite. If you had a ticket, and every citizen did because entry was free, you came for the whole day. You brought food, you picked your side, and you watched Rome perform itself, in blood, from morning to night. The morning belonged to the animals. They were called the venations, the hunts, and they were staged to make one point over and over, that Rome's reach had no edge. Lions and leopards from Africa, tigers from the east, bears, bulls, elephants, crocodiles, ostriches, even the occasional rhinoceros. Animals most people in that crowd had never seen and never would again, dragged thousands of miles across the empire to die in a single afternoon on the sand. At the inaugural games alone, the sources claim 9,000 animals were killed. Think about what that says. If Rome could pull a rhinoceros out of Africa just to kill it in front of you for an hour's amusement, then Rome could reach anywhere and take anything. The hunts were not about the animals. They were a map of the empire written in slaughter. At midday, when the crowd thinned for lunch, came the executions. The condemned, criminals, deserters, prisoners of war were brought out to die. Sometimes simply thrown to the beasts, sometimes with a horrible theatricality, dressed as figures from myth so that their real deaths acted out old stories. A man playing a legend, burning for real. The Romans called it the noon interval. It was the part of the day when the killing had no glory in it at all, just the state, reminding everyone what it could do to a body. And then in the afternoon, the main event, the gladiators. This is the part everyone thinks they know, and most of it is wrong. These were not wild brawls. They were duels, fought by trained professionals, most of them slaves, prisoners, or the condemned, but some of them free volunteers chasing fame and money. They were matched by type, deliberately for contrast. A man with a heavy sword and shield against a man with a net and a trident, armor against speed, so that every fight was a puzzle as much as a slaughter. There were rules. There was a referee. And when a fighter went down, the whole arena turned to one man, the emperor, and the crowd screamed for life or death, and his hand decided it. The winners walked out through one gate, the dead were dragged through another, the gate of life and the gate of death. But to feel what it was actually like in there, you have to add the things that don't survive in the ruins. The sand, raked and soaked to swallow the blood, the smell, blood, sweat, and animal, so thick they sprayed perfume and burned incense to cover it. The sound of trumpets and horns and a great water organ scoring the kills like a film, and the crowd itself stacked by rank from the emperor at the rail to the poor, and the women crammed against the sky, 50,000 Romans in one stone bowl, roaring as a single animal. And here is the thing you have to understand, because it is the whole reason the building existed. None of this was really about entertainment. It was about control. The Romans even had a phrase for it: bread and circuses. Keep the people fed, keep them dazzled, and they will not turn on you. The emperor handed out free grain and free blood, and in return the crowd handed him their loyalty. The Colosseum was a pressure valve for a city of 1 million people. Every roar in that arena was a riot that never happened. Let me stop here for a second, because if you've stayed with me this deep, past the fire, past the propaganda, into what this thing actually did to people, then you are exactly who this channel is built for. We do this every single day. Take the monument everyone photographs and go underneath it to what it was really for. If that's you, subscribe. It costs nothing, and it means the next one just finds you. And do me a favor, tell me in the comments, if you had been in that crowd, would you have looked away or would you have roared with everyone else? Be honest. I read them. Now, back down to the sand. Because everything I just described, the beasts, the fighters, the myths made real, depended on one problem the Romans had to solve. How do you make a lion or an armed man or an entire forest appear in the middle of a sealed arena out of nothing? The answer was never on the sand, it was underneath it. And it is time we went down there. Lift the wooden floor off the Colosseum, pull away the sand, and you find another world. One the 50,000 people above were never allowed to see. They called it the hypogeum. The word just means underground. But what it actually was the engine room of the greatest show on earth. A 2-story labyrinth of brick and stone built directly beneath the arena floor about a decade after the building opened, under the Emperor Domitian. Narrow, dark, suffocatingly hot, lit by torches and thick with the smell of animals and men. Directly above your head, through a few centimeters of timber and sand, people were dying to a roaring crowd. Down here in the dark, hundreds of workers made that dying possible. The layout was deliberate. A long central corridor down the length of the arena, flanked by parallel passages lined with cells, cages, and machinery. And packed into it was a system of ropes and drums and trapdoors, so sophisticated it would not be matched in the theater for over 1,000 years. Here is how a lion appeared out of nowhere. Around the rim of the arena, the original system had about 28 lifts, vertical shafts running from the hypogeum straight up to the arena floor. At the base of each one was the heart of the machine, a capstan. Picture a giant wooden drum standing upright, with a central pole and long bars jutting out of it like spokes laid flat. A team of 8 men would grip those bars and walk in a circle, turning the drum. And as it turned, a rope wound around it. A rope threaded up through pulleys and tied to a cage. Inside that cage was your lion. As the 8 men walked their circle, the cage rose up the shaft toward the light. At the top waited a trapdoor held shut by 2 hinged arms. An operator hauled a rope and swung it open. And the cage had a second trick, a counterweighted front door that struck a stop at the top and sprang open on its own. So the animal came out already running, up a short ramp into the blazing sunlight. To the crowd, there was no cage, no rope, no 8 sweating men. There was empty sand, and then suddenly a lion. The Romans had built a magic trick the size of a building, and it was not only animals. In the central corridor, they ran mobile platforms, flat lifts that carried scenery, fake trees, rocks, whole set pieces. These were raised at an angle through slots in the walls, hauled up by winches, then flipped flat at floor level, so an entire forest could rise from the ground in minutes and turn the arena into a scene from a myth. Later, they added even more lifts along the passages, this time to raise the fighters themselves. Men now appearing out of the earth. Think about the choreography. Dozens of trapdoors across the floor, so beasts could burst up at several points at once and surround a man from every side. Every lift needing its team, every cue timed. Hundreds of people down there in the heat and the dark, pulling ropes on command, sending death upward on schedule. A backstage crew running an opera where the props were lions and the finale was somebody's execution. Imagine being one of those men. The roar of the crowd pounding through the ceiling, sand and blood sifting through the cracks above you, a lion screaming in the cage at your shoulder. And your one job, all day, was to send something up to be killed. And they did not even have to bring the fighters in through the front. 4 tunnels ran out from the hypogeum to buildings outside, including the Ludus Magnus, the great gladiator school next door. Fighters and animals could travel underground, unseen, straight from their cells to the shaft that would lift them into the arena. The audience never watched them arrive. They simply rose out of the floor, as if Rome could summon men and monsters from the underworld itself. That was the hidden machine. Ropes, pulleys, counterweights, timber and muscle, buried under the sand, turning engineering into the appearance of the supernatural. You can still see the bones of it today. The floor is gone, and the whole skeleton of the hypogeum lies open to the sky. A stone maze most visitors glance at without realizing they are looking at the machinery of the show. But there is one trick the Colosseum performed that was even more audacious than making a lion rise from the floor. And here's the strange part. It happened before the hypogeum was ever built. For that one, the Romans did not fill the arena with beasts. They filled it with water. It sounds like a myth or a mistranslation. The idea that the Romans took the greatest amphitheater on earth and turned it into a lake, that they sailed warships where gladiators had bled, and staged full naval battles inside a building in the middle of a city. But the ancient writers describe it plainly. They called it the naumachiae, the sea fight, and here's the detail almost no one notices. The flooding and the underground machine could not both exist at the same time. You cannot fill a basin with water if that basin is packed with 2 stories of tunnels, cages, and lifts. So the naval battles belong to the earliest years of the Colosseum, the opening games under Titus, before the hypogeum was ever dug. For a brief window, the arena had no underground at all. It had a floor you could take out and a space beneath it you could fill. Only later did they trade the water for the machine. So how do you flood a stadium? You pull up the wooden floor and the pillars that held it, leaving a broad sealed basin at the bottom of the arena. Then you call on the thing Rome did better than any civilization before it, moving water. Rome's aqueducts carried rivers into the city across stone arches for miles. The engineers tapped that supply and ran it down through channels carved into the concrete foundation, into a channel that ringed the arena and out through outlets until the basin filled. It would have taken hours, and slowly in the heart of a stone city, a lake appeared where the sand had been. Think about what that took. The same aqueducts that kept 1 million people alive, that fed the fountains and the baths, could be turned on command to drown an arena for one afternoon. An empire so rich in water it could waste a lake on a show. Then they brought the ships. The vessels were crewed by the condemned, prisoners and slaves, and set to reenact famous naval battles from history. Greeks against Persians, Athenians against Syracuse. Old wars fought again, for real, by crews who were not acting. They rammed, they boarded. They fought until one side was destroyed and the water of the arena went dark. To the 50,000 Romans looking down, it was the empire's entire history of conquest, replayed as live theater, in a pool they had watched appear out of nowhere. The poet Martial, who watched the opening games, marveled that where a wild beast had paced the sand, now warships fought, and told the doubter to wait, because soon the water would be dry land again. I will be honest with you, because this channel does not trade in exaggeration. Historians still argue about the scale of what happened inside the Colosseum specifically. The truly enormous sea battles, thousands of men, were staged on artificial lakes elsewhere. How deep the Colosseum's water was, how large its ships could really be, is still debated. But the channels are real. They are carved into the foundation, and you can trace them today. Something was flooded here. The Romans did summon water into that arena. The only argument is about how much. And then, just as astonishing as filling it, they emptied it. Beneath the arena ran a system of drainage channels connected to the great sewers of Rome, the same network that carried away the city's rainfall and waste. When the sea fight was over, they opened the drains and the lake ran out beneath the city. Then the crew laid the wooden floor back down, spread fresh sand across it, and by the next morning the arena was dry ground again, ready for lions and gladiators, as if the water had never been there at all. Sit with the sheer audacity of that. In a single building, the Romans could give you a hunt across a fake forest, an execution staged as a myth, a duel to the death, and a battle on an artificial sea, and reset the entire stage between shows. They were not just entertaining a crowd. They were proving that Rome could command the natural world itself. Bring the beasts of Africa to your feet. Bring the sea into the city. Take it away again by dawn. Nothing, the building said, is beyond us. That was the real flex. Not the gold, not the marble. The control, the power to make the earth open and the water rise on command and make it look effortless to the man in the cheapest seat. But there was one more machine, and this one did not work underground or on the floor. It worked above the crowd's heads, stretched across the open sky, and it took the hands of hundreds of sailors to run it. The games ran from sunrise to sunset, and Roman summer is merciless. The Colosseum was built of pale stone that caught the sun and threw the heat straight back at the crowd. 50,000 people, packed shoulder to shoulder, sitting in that glare for 12 hours. It should have been unbearable. So the Romans did something that, even now, sounds like it belongs to a later century. They roofed the sky. They called it the velarium, a vast retractable awning that stretched out over the seating and shaded the audience, while leaving the arena itself open to the light. So the action always stayed in the sun, and the spectators stayed cool. A canopy the size of the building that could be pulled out or drawn back as the day demanded. Here is how it worked. Fixed into stone sockets around the very top rim of the Colosseum stood 240 wooden masts. Long strips of sailcloth were wound on drums and rigged to run out from those masts toward a great ring of ropes suspended over the center. Using winches and pulleys, each strip could be deployed on its own, hauled out along the rigging until the seating vanished under shade, then wound back in when it was time. A central ring, raised and lowered by ropes running to the tops of the masts and down to winches outside, controlled the tension of the whole canopy. And who could possibly run a machine like that? Acres of canvas, miles of rope, all of it fighting the wind? There was only one group in Rome with the skill: sailors. The emperor stationed men from the imperial fleet, the sailors of Misenum, at the Colosseum specifically to work the velarium, because handling that much rigging in a gust is exactly what a navy does on a warship, except now they were doing it upside down, over a crowd. It took at least 240 of them, one per section, working in coordination, to open the roof over the world's greatest arena. A retractable stadium roof, 2,000 years before we decided we had invented it. But the machine was not only above and below, it was the whole building. Because moving 50,000 people in and out of a stone bowl is its own engineering problem. And the Romans solved it so well that we still copy their answer today. The Colosseum had 80 entrances at ground level. 76 of them were numbered. Every spectator carried a token that told them which numbered gate to use, which stairway, which section, which row. You came in through your assigned arch and were funneled up through radial passages and stairwells the Romans called vomitoria, from the word to spill out, because they poured the crowd into the seating from behind, filling the bowl in minutes, and when it was over, emptying it just as fast. 50,000 people seated or cleared in the time it takes a modern stadium to do the same, because it is the same system. We did not improve on it, we inherited it. The remaining 4 entrances were grand and unnumbered, set at the cardinal points, reserved for the powerful, the emperor entering from the south to his private box, the magistrates from the north. And the 2 gates onto the arena itself were the ones we met earlier, the gate of life and the gate of death. And once you were inside, where you sat told everyone exactly who you were. The closer to the sand, the higher your rank. At the very edge, almost close enough to be splashed, sat the emperor and the senators. The front rows were marble, and some still carry senators' names carved into them. Above them, the knights. Above them, ordinary citizens, the wealthier lower down, the poorer higher up. And at the very top, farthest from the blood, in a wooden gallery added later, stood the people who counted for least in Rome: the poor, the slaves, and the women. You could read a man's entire place in the world by the height of his seat. The whole of Roman society stacked in a single bowl in perfect order. And that is the thing to hold on to. We call it a building, but it was never really a building. It was a machine for hunting, for drowning, for killing, for shading, for moving crowds, for showing every Roman exactly where he stood. Below the sand, above the sky, and in every numbered gate, the same idea: total control made to look effortless. But no machine runs forever. And the strangest part of the Colosseum's whole story is not how it worked. It is what happened when it finally stopped, because Rome fell, and somehow the Colosseum did not. For almost 400 years, the machine ran. Then, slowly, it went quiet. By the 5th century, the great games were ending. Part of it was money. Staging a day of exotic beasts and trained fighters was ruinously expensive, and the empire was shrinking, running out of the reach and wealth that had filled the arena. And part of it was a change in the Roman soul. Christianity was becoming the religion of the empire, and it looked at the blood sports with disgust. There is a story that around the year 404, a monk named Telemachus walked into the arena to stop a gladiator fight and was killed for it, either by the fighters or the furious crowd, and that his death so shamed the emperor that the games were banned. Whether or not it happened that way, the direction was clear. The last gladiators fought in the 5th century, the last animal hunts in the 6th, and then the roar stopped. In 476, the Western Roman Empire fell. The operators of the machine were gone, the crowd was gone, and the greatest building in the world was left standing in a shrinking, half-abandoned city with no purpose and no one to run it. So people moved in, and then people took it apart. In the Middle Ages, a powerful family fortified the ruin into a private castle. Later, it held workshops and stables. This is the chapter almost nobody tells. For over 1,000 years, the Colosseum was treated as a quarry, a mountain of ready-cut stone sitting in the middle of Rome, free for anyone who could haul it away. Its marble was stripped for churches. Its travertine went into palaces and bridges, and the iron clamps that held its blocks together, locking the stone with no mortar, were gouged out of the walls to be melted down, which is why the Colosseum today is covered in thousands of pockmarks, like a body pulled apart for its bones. Stone from it went into the palaces of Rome's noble families, and, in the ultimate irony, into the greatest church in the Christian world, St. Peter's Basilica. The monument built to glorify pagan Rome was slowly eaten to build Christian Rome. Then came the earthquakes. In 1349, a massive one brought down the entire outer wall on the south side. That collapse is why the Colosseum has the shape you know. Hole on one side, torn open on the other. And all that fallen stone just became more quarry. Nature moved in too. For centuries, the ruin stood half wild, and plants took root in it. So many that botanists eventually cataloged hundreds of species growing inside the arena, some of them exotic, possibly sprung from seeds carried in, long before, on the animals shipped from across the empire. Life, growing quietly in the machine built for death. By every right, it should have vanished the way 6 of the 7 wonders of the ancient world did. So why is it still here? Because at the last moment, someone decided it was worth saving. And fittingly, it was the same religion that had shut the games down. In the 18th century, the church declared it sanctified ground, holy, because Christian martyrs were believed to have died on its sand. A pope forbade anyone to quarry it, planted a cross in the arena, and turned the old death machine into a place of devotion. Christianity ended the games, helped strip the stone, and then, in the end, saved what was left. After that came the restorers. As Italy became a nation in the 19th century, the Colosseum turned into a symbol again, no longer of empire, but of Italy itself. Engineers braced the torn ends with great brick buttresses you can still see, stopping the collapse. Archaeologists dug the sand away and uncovered the hypogeum, the hidden machine, for the first time in over 1,000 years. And that is the real reason it survived when Rome did not. Not just the foundations, though they held, not just the arches, though when one fell, the rest still stood. It survived because every age found a new reason to keep it. A fortress, then a quarry, then a relic, then a symbol. It stayed useful, and when it stopped being useful, it stayed meaningful. That is the only thing that ever keeps a monument standing. There is an old line written by an English monk more than 1,000 years ago. While the Colosseum stands, Rome shall stand. When the Colosseum falls, Rome shall fall. And when Rome falls, the world shall fall. The machine went silent 15 centuries ago, but I want to show you why. In one strange sense, it has never actually stopped running. Go back to where we started, a lion appearing on the sand out of nothing, while 50,000 people scream. You know now what they didn't. There was no magic. There was a shaft, a cage, a rope through pulleys, and 8 men in the dark below, walking in a circle, turning a wooden drum, sending a terrified animal up into the light to be killed, and never being seen. The wonder the crowd felt was real, but it was manufactured. Every impossible thing the Colosseum ever did, the beast from nowhere, the forest that rose from the floor, the sea that filled the arena and drained by morning, was rope and counterweight and human muscle, hidden underneath, engineered to look like the supernatural. And that is the thing to carry out of this. The Colosseum was never really about the games. It was a machine with one job, to take 50,000 separate people, senators and slaves, the rich and the starving, and turn them for a day into a single roaring crowd, grateful to the man who fed them and dazzled them. Bread and circuses. Give the people enough blood and enough bread, and they will not come for you. Every roar in that arena was a riot that never happened. That was the real machine, not the lifts, the crowd. So when you see it now, on a screen, on a coin, torn open at the heart of Rome, see it for what it actually is. Not a ruin, not the graveyard of a dead sport, a blueprint, because that machine, the one that turns a crowd's hunger for spectacle into loyalty, we never switched off. We still build enormous bowls of stone and steel. We still pour in tens of thousands and sort them by the price of their seat. We still gather to watch stage combat, and we still feel it. The moment the crowd stops being 1,000 strangers and becomes one animal, with one voice. We still let the people who rule us hand us spectacle, so the afternoon goes down easy. The venue changed. The screen replaced the sand. The machine is the same machine. And here is the part the tourists never feel, filing through the arches with their cameras. You were not built to stand outside this thing, looking in at a dead civilization. You were built to be in the seats. The same wiring that made a Roman roar for blood is still in you. The pull of the crowd, the relief of forgetting for one afternoon, everything waiting outside the walls. Rome understood that wiring better than we do. They knew a fed, dazzled crowd is a loyal crowd. They knew a man who hands you a great enough spectacle can take almost anything else, as long as the show goes on. They built an engine of distraction out of sand and blood and rope, and we only made it bigger, quieter, and easy enough to carry in a pocket. The hypogeum is silent now. The ropes have rotted, the cages are empty. The 8 men who turned the drum have been dust for 2,000 years. That machine stopped long ago. But the other one, the one that was never made of stone at all, is still running. It followed us out of Rome. It is in every stadium, every arena, every glowing rectangle you hold at the end of a long day. Rome tore its own greatest monument apart for the stone and kept the one thing that weighed nothing, the blueprint for how to hold a crowd. They built theirs out of travertine and rope and the bodies of the condemned. We build ours out of something you cannot quarry. And somewhere, always, there is still a man at the rail, the one who paid for the show, the one you are meant to thank. He has changed his clothes over the centuries. He has never left the box. The Colosseum was never only a monument to Rome's past. It was a mirror, raised 2,000 years too early. waiting for us to walk up close and recognize our own face in it. Say the word Rome, and this shape still rises in your mind. Maybe that was always the point. The stone was never the machine. We were. If you made it this far, you already know this isn't the kind of channel that's going anywhere. We put out something like this every single day, the version of the story that survives contact with the actual evidence. Subscribing keeps you in that loop. And if this one stayed with you, send it to 5 people who'd sit through something this long with you. Not everyone will. Some people do. Leave a comment, a real one. Tell me what part of this actually surprised you. And tell me what civilization, what forgotten site, what quiet piece of hidden history you want us to look at next. We'll be here tomorrow, still digging.